almost all seem to want to see in the leader the attributes that they wish they themselves have: integrity, compassion, gentleness, magnanimity. The things that make you and I proud to be human. To say, yes, there are awful things about us, but I realize I am actually made for the transcendent. I am made for goodness. I am made for laughter. I am made for caring. I am made for sharing. And those leaders who somehow embody these things show that it is achievable. Yes, the sky is the limit, and we are meant to reach for the stars and dream God's dream.
Welcome to the Learning Lunch. On this episode of Nourish and Flourish, we'll be taking a look at why hope is key for the function of NGOs. We will be getting lessons about the late Archbishop Desmond Tutu and how he served in his lifetime. The Arch left behind a legacy of hope and resilience. In this episode, we are fortunate to have a conversation with Edwin Orison, a longtime friend of the Arch, and he was also ordained by the Arch. We also speak to Phumi Nhlapo, who is the Chief Operating Officer at the Legacy Foundation. We'll be focusing on how the Arch's values spilled over into the work of civil society and how NPOs can carry on his leadership legacy in their own organizations. With civil society facing many trials in the past as well as in the present, with the COVID-19 pandemic that has amplified these trials, Nourish and Flourish seeks to instill hope. Edwin, I'm going to start with you. You have known Arch since he was in his 50s. Can you describe what it was like working with him? How he has been a leader, a model leader for our society and for those that, worked closely with him. In your writings, you mentioned that his leadership was a unique one. It was one that could be caught but not taught. I like that a lot. And that he embodied what he believed. And you also mentioned servant leadership and how close to his heart that was. So if you could please help us understand how his leadership qualities were. You worked with him. You shared experiences with him.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the DG Murray Trust for this opportunity to share a little bit about the life and the work and the values of the Arch. I met the Arch in the mid-80s, but my first close to face-to-face encounter with him was in a room here in Hanover Park at the retreat center. And I went to see him because he was interviewing potential priests. And as I walked into the room, I was very nervous. Here's an archbishop, here is a Nobel Peace Prize winner. I walked into the room and I saw him sitting on his bed, like a little Buddha sitting on the bed. And he had a pack of Simba crisps with him or something. And that's the first thing he did. He welcomed me and he offered me some crisps, just to put me at ease, I think. And I really appreciated that because I thought, I'm so nervous, but here this man actually just puts me at ease. And so, I was selected to start my theological studies the following year. But I met him, of course, and I worked with him many, many times after that. One particular story that I really love telling about him is how I drove him up to Namakwaland. Yeah. There was a service there, of services of the weekend there, and we drove all the way there, and we did what we did that weekend, having different services, and then on the Sunday, we had lunch in the family's house. We all were sitting, and as soon as lunch was over, he got up and he walked to the kitchen and he started washing the dishes. And of course, some of the women particularly were upset. No, Father, you can't do this. And he really just said, no, I want to do it. And I knew that this was a lesson he was teaching it to all of us, but particularly to the men, because as men, of course, we sometimes think this is not our duty. And so as Archbishop, he took the first step and started washing the dishes. And I hope that, other people certainly would have learned from that, but I certainly learned a huge amount from that. There are many stories like that I can tell, but perhaps one of the important ones, and particularly because of climate justice and climate change at the moment, is that often when he would be walking in the city in Cape Town with his cassock on, and he would see some papers lying or plastic lying on the street, he would actually stop and pick it up and go throw it in a bin. So for me, why I say caught not taught is because people could see it. You could see it, and he wasn't faking it. This is who he was, and not only those occasions, but every single day. That's the kind of person that he was. In the last few years of his life, he lived in Hermanus, quite close to me, and I remember taking a person, who could work in the garden for them, just to assist with that. And he made a cup of tea for this person, he made a cup of tea and a sandwich, and he brought it out, here towards the end of his life. And so really, this is someone who was quite consistent in the way he acted, wanting to be an example for others to follow.
Yeah. And I think led with, just authenticity and compassion and love, and it was real. It was never anything that he's trying to do just so that he can seem that way.
Absolutely. I mean, and I often say to people that the Arch, of course, he led from a spiritual source.
Yeah.
And servant leadership for him was something that he had learned through the scriptures. If you want to be first, you must be last. That's the kind of spirituality with which he comes to this. And so I think some of the younger people might just know him as someone who's sort of angry and screaming at society and so on and so forth. But really, he was probably one of the most gentle people I certainly know. And he was very affirming. There were times when he would ask me to do something, draft something or whatever. And it was incredible, actually, how, he would come to me and he would say, just change that one word over there, But he would really just affirm the kind of work that some of us were doing. But he would always say, he was a team player, of course, and that was the good thing for me also to see him, because he would say, you guys make me look good, you guys, that was the one thing. And then also he would say, I stand on the shoulders of many.
Yes.
So he would never take personal. So even when he won the Nobel Peace Prize, you'll remember when he was standing in Norway, he said, I'm receiving this on behalf of the South African Council of Churches. He would not, it's not Desmond Tutu. It's about us. It's about those of us who were working with him in the churches at the time and in the struggle against apartheid. And of course, he identified clearly that apartheid was not only an ideology, but also a theology and a spirituality. And he zoomed in on that. And I think that was probably the worst mistake that the apartheid ideologues could have made, because he was able to say to them, what you're doing is exactly the opposite of what is in the scriptures. God says every single person is created good, created in my image, and you are saying the opposite. So I'm going to stand up because I know I'm standing on the side of the angels.
He put his faith into action.
Yeah, always. I mean, he was, of course, he promoted non-violence, and so often he would, in Cape Town, certainly many times he would take us on a march. He would say, "Look, I have now spoken to these people. I've phoned them. I've written letters." And letter writing, by the way, was one of his key skills from the mid-70s. He would write letters. And he always told us, learn how to write a good letter, you know. But then he would say, let's get onto the streets. Let's take the people with us. And people say, but where do you get your mandate from? He said, oh, my mandate is from God. You know, he was always quite clear. And so he operated from that sort of deep source. And thousands of people would follow him. And we, in the process, I think having a leader like that means that you lost your faith. I mean, sorry, you lost your fear. You built courage through that, and so you suddenly just decide, well, there's this evil that must be overcome, and we will do it together. And so arrests could not stop us, police dogs could not stop us, you know, threats could not stop us, because we believe that we're on the side of justice.
Courageous and yet so humble as well, you know, in terms of his leadership style and the leadership values. Now, within organizations, NGOs, there are moments of pressure, and more so in this period that we're in now, COVID-19, almost post-COVID-19. How did Arch handle those moments of pressure, of conflict within an organization, but still remain humble?
Yes. Well, first of all, he, as I said earlier on, he was a team player. And besides that, he would always affirm the team. I think he really believed that it's important to build up as much credit as possible, and create an atmosphere where the team can thrive. And so by doing that, when the pressure moments come, you have enough credits built up to be able to absorb and to be resilient against this kind of pressure. I think if we simply just work and, you know, go, and target, and we don't take the human being into concern. I mean, his main identity was around a word like Ubuntu, and it was really about, you are a person because of other persons. You have goodness in you. And so for him, it was always about affirming the person and no person. I mean, he and sometimes embarrassingly so, you would say, no person is beyond redemption. And so sometimes when we want to, you know, label a certain person, no, don't do that, because you are now putting that person in a particular cage or box, and the person has a core of goodness in him or her. You don't know what happened to that person's life over the years, why he or she came to that particular point. And so he would always affirm that. And by affirming that, the one sermon he always preached was about that we are rocks. We look like we are a rock, but actually there's a diamond deep within us. Wow. And if the rocks get knocked away, you'll see the diamond emerging. And so by thinking of human beings in that way, and he would do the same with the staff in the office. He would do the same with these priests that he worked with everyone. Lay people, he did the same. He regarded people as people. And that was the important thing for him.
Sure. Very powerful lessons there. Just also looking at still having hope for the person, even if the person, and I love when you mention that there is still redemption for that person as well. You know, you cannot just label and judge. And those are the legacies that we carry on with now. And now working in civil society you can sometimes get to a point where you're feeling depleted and depletion then gets to not being productive. So how do we ensure people stay motivated and engaged within the civil society space?
Yeah. Well, first of all, he had many hours of silence per day. I think it was part of his self-care in any case. But silence was a big thing for him. A leader is a reader, so he would often, he read. I mean, people gave him books all the time. He wrote books himself, of course. So I think it was important for him to always ensure that he stays focused, that he has this spaces of silence. One of the people who also worked very closely with him said that whenever he went to the US, they wanted to run him off his feet, have one meeting after the next, after the next, after the next. And they would say to him, no. I mean, he would say to them, no. If you want the Desmond Tutu that you invited to come here, you will have to give him spaces in between and spaces of silence. And so he made sure that he spoke from a very deep place of silence. People are surprised when they hear that he had up to 4 or 5 hours silence a day. But it was only from that he was able to be effective. And so activists really must be careful that they don't operate just from activism and from wanting to advocate for something and so on. I recently led some people in unity talks, and every now and then I would stop them and say, let's just keep a few moments of silence, and we'd be silent, and it would be amazing to see what comes out after that. But if we just let it go, and then the words has become too much, I think there's an emptiness that then creeps in, and so to have depth, I think we do need that silence.
Take moments to realign, re-strategize, and get back to the core.
Absolutely.
Now, you've mentioned many lessons that have been learned, but I'm sure there's one or a couple that come up that really, really impacted your life, especially given the friendship that you have with the Arch. So can you perhaps take us through some of these?
I think the first one is humility. In Afrikaans, I don't know how many of your listeners would know Afrikaans, but they sometimes say, "Hou vir jou so plat soos 'n menorah blade, be as flat as a menorah blade." Don't imagine that you are better than other people. Treat every person the same. And I think humility is at the root of much of what the Arch was. And so if I think about the Arch and things I can take away, that would be the one, the embodying, what he believes in. That would be another one. Discipline. I mean, discipline. The Arch was a stickler for time to begin with. So you would never start a meeting late with him, for one. That would be, but even simple things like the way you dressed. I was a chaplain many times when I went to services with him, and there could not be a mark on his cassock or whatever. So everything, and it had to be ironed well. So he was a stickler for those kind of things. And so those would be, I think, some of the lessons that I certainly learned from him that will stay with me for a long time, because I think society needs people today who don't think of themselves as better than others, but rather thinks of themselves as equal with others, and then build a society. So whether it be in the family home or whether it be in the office or wherever, build a society where that equality is made real.
We've already mentioned the importance of hope for NGOs, because with hope, you're able to move forward. With hope, you're able to be productive. You're able to thrive and flourish as an NGO or anyone working within civil society. Now, the Arch calls himself, he used to call himself a prisoner of hope.
Yeah.
And so how was he able to be hopeful in times of extreme conflict, pressure from the government, from other social activists, and the need for the greater public?
It's about the conviction that what you are doing is absolutely right. So when I think about activists across the globe, particularly those who are in the anti-apartheid movement, I will never forget those activists who stood outside Trafalgar Square in London 24/7, in the snow, in the rain. Sometimes there would only be one activist standing there calling out the regime, the apartheid regime in South Africa. And I think those people, even they may not even have been people of faith, they may not even have been people who expressed, but yet they had a strong hope within them. And the hope was that this system will come to an end sooner or later. You never put a time on hope. The women in Germany, some of the women in Germany were telling me the story about how their bishops withdrew money from what they were doing because they were calling for sanctions against South Africa.
Yeah.
And yet they would go to a shop, they would take ketchup, and they would see South African apples on the shelf there, and they would put the ketchup, the tomato sauce on the apples, and they would say, "This is the blood of South African children. This represents the blood of South African children, and we do not want you to buy these apples." And so they acted in hope, despite the opposition that they were sometimes getting from others.
Sure. There's always hope, and you just keep on going and holding strong. For me, I would like you to join the conversation as well. You've worked with the foundation now, the Legacy Foundation, and I'd like to know, how has the foundation so far continued with Arch's legacy of reconciliation and wise leadership?
So the past year we've spent building a permanent exhibition on the Arch's life and work. It's opening on the 25th of March. Very exciting, very hard work we've done. And the aim of it really is not to teach history. The Arch did this in this year, and the Arch did that in that year, but to teach all of us, young and old, what it means to be a courageous leader, what it means to have very strong values. Edwin talked about your core and what you believe in, and to really lead with that in everything that you do. We want to really, we had a memorial for the Arch after he passed, and there were a lot of speakers there that talked about raising 1,000 Tutu voices, and that really resonated with us, that our role really is to teach the next generation, the current generation, how to be that leader, and how to really have strong values that you hold on to, whatever challenges you're facing in life, whatever situation you need to, this is how we change the world. And that's really the aim of the foundation, is to really make sure that the work and the life that Tutu lived lives on in all of us. Whether we are leaders in our organizations, leaders in our communities, whether we want to impact just the small environment where we are, or the world, like the Arch did. So we mustn't look at him and put him on a pedestal too much and think that he had special powers because he accomplished what he did and he lived his life the way he did. We should learn from that and incorporate that in our own lives and really be the change that we want to see. So that's really going to be the role of our organization moving forward, is to teach people this is what's possible for you in your life. The Arch, his style of leadership was this, and you can incorporate that in your life.
Definitely. And so now moving on in terms of the perspectives and the practices that the Arch incorporated and implemented in his lifetime, how can organizations do that, especially when we speak of civil society? How can we do that in a practical way in order for us to carry on that legacy of his leadership values? It's either or.
Okay. I think for me it's really being a courageous leader in the space that you're in. Civil society work is not easy. You have to really stick to what you want to accomplish in life. You have funding challenges. You have challenges being listened to by government, by politicians, and in order to stay the course, you really have to be courageous and be prepared to speak truth to power. And that's actually what our exhibition is called, Truth to Power. And that's the consistency that we really need to have. Edwin spoke about how, as a person, you have to have a way of safeguarding yourself as a human being and having those quiet moments of contemplation so that you can fuel yourself for the work that you do. But it's really being resilient and making sure that whatever the challenges are, you still stick to your mandate and you still speak truth to power.
Truth to power. Edwin, would you like to add on to that? Just practically, how do we do that? Truth to power.
I think it's important that we don't just think of the arts as an individual, but that he constantly built alliances, friendships. He built this across, religious traditions. He built it across civil society. There was a time when the Black Liberation Movement was very divided. There was the BC people, Black conscious people, then there's the PAC people, and the Azapo people, and the ANC people, the non-racial people, and so on. And it was really his desire that these people all sit in the same room and talk to one another and build maximum unity. In civil society, we must do the same. Sometimes we differ on only one small little thing, maybe one sentence that we differ on, and we make it as if it's the end of the world. It's not the end of the world to disagree with someone. So the kind of society we want to build is a society where we want to be able to have courageous conversations. It's one of our things that we do at the foundation. We help people to have these courageous conversations with each other, to build a deliberative democracy. That's what we want to do. And we can, as I said earlier on, we can start this in our homes. Rather than hit your child, have a conversation with the child. And if the child differs with you, accept it that perhaps this is a learning moment for you as parent to actually learn. I have two daughters. My eldest is 25 years old. So I know, and at a very initial stage of our marriage, we decided we will never hit our children. And therefore, we needed to listen. We needed to engage. We needed to, even if we think the child is perhaps, a bit too cocky or whatever, let's engage with that. And I think it starts there, actually. And then we can't have one value that we practice in our organization and a different one at home also. We have to be consistent. And I mean, this was the kind of consistency that I saw in the Arch, of course, as well. When I say you would go to his house and say, "Oh, can I make you tea?" And if you say no, he said, "No, I will make you tea. You need to be able to rest." So I think it's that we need to build that and start doing it everywhere, in every space, and across boundaries of whether it be economic class, whether it be gender, sexual orientation, whatever. Just build that alliances and community so that we are stronger together, actually, as the hashtag says.
Yes, stronger together. Now, I know that the Arch was someone that was a very humorous person and would sometimes turn conversations or really intense situations and give it a bit of a lighter moment. So if you could, for me, maybe take us through some of those moments where you've experienced the humor and also how humor can heal.
Yes. So this is a personal example. I still worked in corporate at the time for the oil industry, and the Arch had very strong views about that industry being not good for the environment. We were supporting the launch of the Desmond Tutu HIV Foundation, and he was the main speaker, and he said things about the industry. Obviously, we're sponsoring this. Said things about the industry that were not very complimentary. Gooid in a joke in there, disperse the situation, because my executives were feeling very uncomfortable in their suits and ties. And you know what I learned from that is the Arch is not a politician. The Arch is very clear about what his views are on this matter, this topic. And he's not willing to say nice things about the industry just because the industry is sponsoring this event. And for me, that was a huge lesson, that you can make your point and make it strongly without destroying the other person, if I can put it that way. You can still preserve them, but you can tell them what you think about it. And that there are many stories about the Arch doing that, where he makes a point and gets people to laugh, but it may have been a small joke, but the lesson is huge.
Man, I just want to hear more stories. But the highlights from this conversation are really to be a leader that is able to affirm others, be disciplined in what you do, set a good foundation for your team, lead with humility, and as you're saying, look after the core. Take moments of silence. Take moments where you take a little bit, you move a little bit back and you realign. And stick to your strong values. Stick to those values. I thank you both for this time. It was really a delight and a treat to have you with us. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Now it's time for the takeaways. As the Archer's colleagues mentioned, meditation formed a huge part of the Archer's daily practices as a wise leader. We would like your team to take a few moments of silent reflection. If some people in the group know a little bit about the Arch and his life, can they share what about him they appreciate the most? Each person writes a personal reflection about their level of hope at the moment. Did reflecting about the Arch inspire more hope in them? Why? What will they be taking forward in their lives and in their work?